Welcome everyone to this webinar titled Jozi City Regeneration. Very excited to have you all here. My name is Marloes Reining and I'll be your host for today. So, who are we and who's the host here? The host is the Regenerative Collaborative of South Africa, which is a non-profit organization focused on transforming our built environment into a regenerative one. We promote strategies and approaches that bring regenerative design and construction to life. We work collectively to inspire, educate, and create awareness and contextualize a regenerative built environment approaches to the South African context. We really try to make an effort to showcase local projects, local people, and local companies that are aligned with our goal, which is creating a regenerative future. And I see Lizette is already posting all our links onto our social media platforms. So every month we have webinars about different topics around the regenerative built environment. If you've missed one of these, all our webinars from 2021 are uploaded onto our YouTube channel, so you can go back and have a look at them. And then please, if you can make some time during the webinar to follow us on one of our social media platforms, Eventbrite, which is our registration platform, LinkedIn and YouTube. It really helps us for finding funding, and then we can show that we have a lot of followers. So please make some time to like us on any of these. Also, we are always looking for sponsors to sponsor one of these webinars. We are a non-profit organization and we do have some costs to get the CPDs validated. So if you know anybody that has a lot of money and that wants to donate to our non-profit, we welcome any suggestions for names. So, coming to that, we are here to discuss a very exciting topic, and how this came about was that we had a number of presentations of good things that are happening in Cape Town, and yeah, we felt like there's a lot of good happening in Jozi as well, in Joburg, and we wanted to showcase that as well. So we found two amazing speakers for today's topic that are going to tell us a lot more positive and good stories about our city, and hopefully can bring some positivity to Joburg. So I'm going to introduce the speakers, both of them, and then I'll give the floor to Lethu to take over. So welcome to Lethu Masango, is a very seasoned urban planner with more than 20 years of experience in the built environment. He's currently a senior urban economist at the World Bank's Pretoria office, where he has contributed to projects across Uganda, Kenya, and South Africa. Before joining the World Bank, Lethu held key roles within the city of Johannesburg in economic development and housing and development planning. He holds a master's in development planning from the University of Witwatersrand and continues to shape the future of cities through his work across the continent. Welcome. And we're also very pleased to welcome Diale Lodi, also a very experienced urban and regional planning with over 20 years experience in urban development planning. He currently serves as the COO of Jozi My Jozi, and he has played a key role nationally, leading the integrated urban development framework and contributing to the district development model and its rollout in Gauteng. Diale also initiated the CBD revitalization program, now being implemented by the Gauteng government. With his extensive experience, he has become a respected voice in spatial and urban development, sharing insights at conferences and forums, both locally and abroad. So I'm very excited to have you guys here. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Lethu to start with the first presentation.
Thanks so much, Marlies, and good afternoon, everybody again. Really lovely to be here. So I took the honor of being invited to a session by Regenerative Collaborative SA to then focus my presentation largely on the collaborative solutions that we have tried to instill in the work that we are doing in the city of Joburg. By no means are we telling the city what to do, but we have been contracted through the City Support Program, which is a good partner to the World Bank and has been since 2013, where we've provided technical assistance across a range of issues from human settlements, resilience, fiscal and governance solutions, human settlements, and economic development. And we have been working with the city of Joburg for the past 2 years in shaping this urban regeneration story that I'm going to share. But as indicated, I'll focus a lot more in the latter part of the presentation on the collaborative solutions we have advanced. So, I think those that know me understand that I, as an urban planner, have loved very much this book by Lindsay Bremner. It's a 2001 book, but it really paints for me the city of Joburg as one that is in constant flux and is in constant friction in terms of land uses, what happens in spaces. There's forever new identities that are shaping the urban form. And the key aspect of this book is that urban planners don't often know how to deal with this transformation and how to then harmonize these competing rationalities. And hence you see the dilapidation, you see the crowding in of buildings because people demand space and the land use doesn't fit, or the building typologies. And our reaction is often never quick enough as urban planners. So we, as I indicated, have been engaged for the past 2 years with the city. And I think for those that have a sense of what the city does with regards to urban regeneration, the image that you see on the right is the city's approach, looking at the various precinct plans that are available. But then as you look closer, the dots in this image are pretty much where the city has spent its resources, and always focusing to spend its resources. So in terms of the policy direction, in terms of having a spatial development framework, anchoring it on elements such as transit-oriented development, are all there. And I think the city is very well aware of its challenges as it impacts the inner city. However, we've felt that the approach has not yielded any positive results. And again, those that interact a lot with the city would know that some 10 years ago, there was a major investment around Maboneng. And today, you go there, it's a sad reflection of what it could have been. And I think we're all seeing it deteriorate in front of our eyes. It's really about the sustainability of the interventions that either get made by the private sector or get made by the city itself. And we then engaged the city and said, look, from our point of view, it doesn't help to try and replicate this process of redoing an urban regeneration strategy. You could pull the latest one and dust it up a bit, and it would still be a relevant document until such time that the city changes approach and rather focuses really intensively on precincts rather than this current scattergun approach, which is not yielding much results. And so we have in these 2 years have brought on board a number of partners. So, for instance, the City Resilience Program, the Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery, are all behind the various pieces of work that we are undertaking, including a market study, which I'll share a little bit later on. And then we also partnered with the bank's Global Smart City Program to help us overcome the data challenges. And I often reflect on the early days of the engagement where we were looking for information in different formats, and some of the departments would walk into the room and hand us information that is on Excel sheets that are printed, and you can tell that there isn't much integration in terms of data and information within the city. So there were a lot of challenges that we had to overcome in the early days, and there's also resources that we've done around incentives policy, because developers in the inner city really are struggling to access the various grants, but also incentives that are available from the city. So then on the issue of a precinct-based approach, we then agreed with the city that they would indicate to us 3 potential sites where we could undertake a precinct prioritization approach, that being the Hillbrow Health Precinct and the High Court Precinct, and the large chunk at the bottom, which is the M2 city precinct, which is an area that the city had not spent much time. But if you consider Newtown to the left of that large piece, there's been some investments in other parts of the city, but none that have impacted this part of the city. And we then undertook a baseline assessment. And as I mentioned earlier on, I think all of these challenges are known to all of us around the failing infrastructure services or service delivery when it comes to water, GRA, and city power. But what was really interesting for us was the spatially fragmented investments, as I had mentioned, where the city over a number of years, you can track one investment in this spot, and then they move on to a separate area. And there was also an interesting disjuncture between the city's investments and where the urban development zone tax incentives were being applied for from the private sector. And then, of course, the housing crisis, which has led to the number of bad buildings that characterize the inner city. So in looking at these 3 areas, we realized that all of them offered a particular opportunity, whether we're talking a sector-driven approach where you're now focusing on health, or the automotive or the industrial activities around the M2 city, or the High Court and the legal hub that is potentially available to be harnessed. But what we found is that Hillbrow and the High Court really are a lot more saturated, and the city actually looked at M2 city and said, if there were ever to be a space where there is rapid transformation, given the nature of the area, it would probably be the M2 city precinct. And the character of the area is that it's largely 2-3 story buildings, so immediately it lends itself to higher residential redevelopment. In recent months, there was the launch of Jewel City, which is just adjacent to this specific precinct. There's been significant investment by the city in terms of public infrastructure around the Westgate BRT station. There's the Faraday taxi rank, as well as existing and new mixed-use interventions from the private sector. Then, I think we can tell the regeneration story and the approach and where all the baseline work is going and the market study that we're undertaking. But I thought it would be a lot more useful in this session to share how all of these findings and the emphasis that we had then developed around M2 City was then taken to the next level. So we had all this interesting information that we had gathered, but then we wanted to go and test some of the issues out with stakeholders on the ground and really have a better understanding of what they perceive to be happening in M2 City and how we then are able to support the area with the regeneration approach. So then we approached our Information and Technology Solutions Office, who have undertaken a number of interesting design sprints to help reimagine various spaces. So across the globe, they have been rolling out this innovative design sprint process, and we felt that it was the perfect instrument to be able to get various stakeholders around the same table and be co-creating solutions. So just really briefly on what the design sprint is all about. It really is about how do you firstly lay out the various challenges as they impact a particular space, and how then to bring about these various stakeholders into the same room and engage on various issues to test the outputs and related timeframes that we would want to see, and then create an instrument that we then be able to use or help the city use in order to be able to get further buy-in into the process. So we had this over 3 days. There were a number of key participants, including decision makers, so leaders from the public sector, various government entities, community representatives, as well as subject matter experts, but obviously anchored through the support that we received from our technology and innovation experts that made use of really interesting tools and instruments to help the visioning exercise. But we felt though that before we got into the visioning, we wanted to really lay the ground on what the key issues were. So with key stakeholders in government, with the development financing institutions that were present, with key players from the private sector, we had a series of engagements where we were firstly unpacking the challenges to make sure that we were really clear. We were getting different perspectives on M2 City and having people really start to empathize about what's happening in the space and what should be undertaken in the space. But then really interesting intervention was one where we played what's called point the finger. So we put all the various groups from government to the development financing institutions, the private sector, and community organizations in various groups, all stood around and started engaging, where people would be pointing fingers on why the city looks the way it looks. And it was a really important process because it allowed us to overcome what most of us walk into rooms with our own baggage and not really listening to other players. It was a really interesting process. I'm not going to attempt to play the video, but just to outline that one of the private sector individuals really strongly articulates to the city how all the various interventions that have been tried in the space have been a failure, largely because of what the city has been unable to undertake, and the finger pointing went in either direction. And Joss was standing on the side and acting very impartial as part of on this exercise. Right, and then so just to give you a further sense then of what we then undertook over the 2 days. We walked into the room with a set of personas where we had defined various key stakeholders that are useful in the space. So from property developers to residents in various shapes and sizes and economic backgrounds, etc. And we asked the participants to unpack this so that they would be able to empathize with the various issues that impact these stakeholders. We then moved on to thinking about solutions using scenarios where if the city were to keep things the same way, what would happen? And if things were to marginally change, and then there was obviously the high road. And all of these issues were really important in helping frame what potentially could happen if there is not enough action that's being taken in the M2 precinct. And this culminated in very strategic inputs that we received from various players, so people who know that these are areas where there's clear walkways would point those out. We had actually overlooked a key city infrastructure or asset in the form of City Kids that's located on the eastern side of the precinct. And somebody pointed this out that, you know, your boundaries or the city's boundaries stop right before the City Kids, and it would be a real shame if this were to be excluded. And the city then has gone ahead and change the boundary to be able to include this amazing schooling facility in the area. Then on the final day, we had all of these various inputs that had been submitted. So the image that you see on the right, on the top right, is the various inputs that the 5 teams had discussed, but then people would actually stand up and go and vote based on where they felt that we needed to intervene in the space, what activities needed to be undertaken there. But then we then started a validation process with stakeholders that were there on day one. So your high level participants who wouldn't be able to stay the entire course of the design sprint came back, and we were engaging around what we were seeing, what some of these solutions actually were starting to look like. Street closures, people talking about intensifying land uses related to industrial activities in some parts of the precinct, intensified housing solutions and different typologies of housing solutions. And they were able to validate and give us additional input, as you see with all of these stickers that you have over there. But I think what's most important is to reflect on the city's understanding and an appreciation of the design sprint, is that they, in 3 days, we went from a situation where we had done a situation analysis, didn't really know what was a good use of the space, and we were able to get this input from the various players in the 3 days, pointing out the challenges, not that they are fully unknown, but it always helps that you engage with people that experience the issues firsthand in the space, and to then work on solutions that would make sense for this part of the inner city. So then we then discussed a roadmap with all of these stakeholders to then think about who needs to do what in the space, when does this happen, and what are the resources that would be required. And the first phase, which is what's called the kickstart. The interesting part about this first phase is that ordinarily, if we were undertaking this exercise, or the city was undertaking a precinct planning exercise, in most instances you would land up with a plan that's not fully engaged with various stakeholders, but a plan that probably only looks at the big item issues around infrastructure investment in this area, public environment upgrades. But a lot of the participants that were in the room were saying, we hear that will happen down the line, but in order for the city to demonstrate that it is clear and committed to this process, we want to see quick wins that include the following. People will point out that all these vacant properties, for instance, we need to have solutions around them, around activations, whether we have pop-up markets or we close these streets during the weekend and we open up play courts for children, whatever it is. Everybody resoundingly was talking about these quick wins as the most important reflection to stakeholders. And then also talking about expanding this validation process, because it was a very unique approach to having obtained the various inputs, but we also felt that there were a lot of players that were not in the room, especially the end users in many of these dilapidated buildings, or some of the NGOs that are functional in these spaces, as well as the private sector that has interest. And then following that would then be the catalytic phase, where the city starts to then invest in infrastructure upgrades and improvements, but starts also to structure the public and private partnership interventions so that there is a clear partnership in place. And excuse me, phase 3 has been omitted somehow, but phase 3 is where we then scale these interventions, identify these key anchor projects that will help turn around the space. And some of the guiding principles that were agreed to were this issue around the inclusivity of development, an integrated approach that not only looks at issues from a housing point of view, but sees it from an ecosystem point of view, that what else do you need in the space for this to work? You need lighting, you need walkable spaces, you need available and present and safety ambassadors in the space, whether it's the city's metro police or other forms that involve the community. And obviously the issue of local ownership, whether we're talking about the presence of jobs being targeted to individuals in the space, but most importantly, following the lead of the private sector that is functional in the space. Just really gives a detailed view of some of the kickstart issues of the various phases. So basic service restoration and public space activation I spoke to. Then the catalytic project, which would look at issues around connectivity, reclaiming of hijacked buildings, and harnessing existing spend or assets, including the Faraday Transport Hub, as well as the Westgate facility. And these are the scale interventions that I highlighted earlier on. And it was really interesting and fascinating to see so many people advocating for green urban spaces, and especially given that we are almost on the edge of the CBD, there's a lot of opportunity to link this with existing spaces. Again, this is just a lot of detail about the quick wins and the flagship projects and how these would be undertaken. But I think it's ideal that I pause here on the next steps, because this platform and today's engagement is really useful for us, because we're still looking for stakeholders who would like to have a say in the roadmap that has been developed. So we'd really be keen to hear if any of the participants here would like to reach out to us and just engage a bit further on what we are doing. We'd be really happy to do that. But additionally, I didn't put it in this presentation, but there is going to be a competition that we launched that looks at the physical design of the space. where we're looking for innovative solutions. The market study will tell us a lot of intelligence about how to package investments, what sort of land uses would be ideal, so that developers know that, okay, this makes sense. The city will obviously play its role in terms of the various interventions I spoke to, including infrastructure upgrades. But then really it is about how do we continue the institutional arrangement with the likes of Jozi My Jozi, as Diale will share a little bit later on. But we're really keen to help the city establish workable solutions and institutional arrangements with the private sector, with communities on the ground, in order to be able to really achieve an exemplary, integrated and sustainable investment into city, and then to be able to replicate that in other parts of the inner city. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lethu. That was very amazing. Like, it must be like almost a dream to actually do these kind of workshops, right? Doesn't happen too often. With those kind of activities of like where people can point fingers and like posting those kind of,
absolutely. It was a real pleasure to just have a very fresh approach to engaging with individuals. I must say that we were confused as how we were going to undertake a stakeholder engagement process, envisioning exercise that breaks away from your typical, I don't know whether to call it like town hall engagement, where people are just throwing their problems. But here we were able to actually get the problems and the solutions in the same sitting. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for sharing, and I'm sure there will be a lot more questions later on. Diale, do you want to come on and try to share your presentation?
Thanks very much, Luis, and we're really, really happy to get the opportunity to come and share with you what I believe is probably one of the most incredible stories that I've come across, certainly in my career, for the time that I've been doing what I'm doing now. What I'm about to share with you is really a story of a group of people that in the lighthearted way we call the crazies. It's essentially a group of people who are very passionate about the city of Johannesburg, the CBD of Johannesburg. It's a story of a group of people who do what they do because they love the city of Johannesburg. They want to make a difference and they want to make an impact. And it's really going to be hopefully a powerful testimony that shows what happens when you get people who want to make a difference, do so with an amount of dedication, commitment, and consistency. Jozi My Jozi is, I'm hoping some of you may have heard about it, is a non-for-profit organization that was founded just over 2 years ago. It's really, we pride ourselves as not an institution that pushes some popular marketing campaign or anything that is temporary. We see ourselves as a movement for the people that is representing the people, that is rooted in action, be it small or big, so that we can basically make a difference and an impact in the CBD of Johannesburg. Everything that I'm going to share with you hopefully will demonstrate the passion that comes through in the nature of the people. Our mission is to really bring inspiration back to people who live in the city of Johannesburg. I think we spoke about the positivity and the positive messaging and the demonstration of some positive things that are happening in the CBD of Johannesburg or in the city of Johannesburg in the midst of a lot of negativity, a lot of decay, a lot of darkness and gloom. So we are hoping that we bring back slowly but surely that sense of hope that sense of pride into the CBD of Johannesburg through the work that we do. So that's essentially our mission, that is inspired by the Constitution. A lot of the work that we do is established around the ecosystem that comprises of a lot of partners who basically either dedicate resources, resources in terms of financial resources or human expertise to assist and to sit within the Jozi My Jozi platform and actually get work done. And there's a list in front of you that you can see there. At the moment, we have in total, give or take, about 136 partners. What's exciting me, and I've seen this happen in real time, and this is the good story that we like to share, is that all of these partners approach Jozi My Jozi with the intention of working with us voluntarily. There's no mobilization to say, please come work with us. They literally reach out to Jozi My Jozi to say, we want to do something. Let's sit down around the table and have a conversation of what it is that we can do to add value, what it is that we can do to make a contribution or make a difference. Majority of about 36 or so. Obviously, there's about 38 or so that we need to allocate. But just to give a sense of, I suppose you can call it the magnitude, but at the same time, the potential that exists within this Jozi My Jozi ecosystem, as it were. We execute or do the work that we do across what we call work streams. A lot of what I'm about to share with you in terms of programs and project sits in either any of the 6 work streams, be it safety and security, social education, arts and culture, or commerce. We have a leg that's looking at public transit and revitalization, which is an incredibly innovative but complex work stream that we're trying to activate. It rests essentially on significance of public transport, zooming into the role of the taxi industry within our cities. Quite frankly, across South Africa, we all know the importance of the taxi industry with its good and bad. But the reality of the matter is that they're an important player within our cities, and one needs to find a way of engaging with them. So we are attempting to do that. I'm not going to say it's easy, but there's work that we're trying to do. We also have a footing in the G20 preparation and tourism to try and actually assist and work with government in this process. Our delivery model is premised on two things. I think if you want to say what is one of the things that defines what Jozi My Jozi does, the first one is being a super connector, essentially bringing together people, connecting people so that they can work together to deliver a particular service or a particular program, that's the first part. The second component looks at fast-paced delivery, and I will show you some of the programs. I've joined Jozi My Jozi March this year, and I was incredibly blown away with not only the intensity, but the pace of delivery and the intentionality that sits with the idea that we actually want to get stuff done. We have our own saying that we get shit. I won't say what that means in case of anyone, but we really pride ourselves in trying to get stuff up. I'm not saying it's easy, but we really focus a lot on that. In the social work stream or social initiatives pillar that we lead, there's effectively about 4 areas of work, all of which are centered around dealing with issues or the challenge of homelessness, other people call this displaced people within the city. Starting with what we're calling the point in time count. This is really an initiative that seeks to have or give a very credible baseline of the profile of homeless people within the CBD of Johannesburg. For obvious reasons, you can see why this is important, because if you have a sense of what is the profile of homeless people in the CBD of Johannesburg, where are they located, you are able to come up with interventions or initiatives that would respond to the real issues that homeless people are facing. And I'm tempted to even share that just now, because we started to do this. That's the first part. The second one talks about drop-in shelters, which is really goes hand in hand a little bit with the fourth one, which is shelters. We're looking at very innovative ways of accommodating homeless people within the CBD of Johannesburg. We're using a system, and it's been done in Ekurhuleni and other metros as well, where we're actually coming up with containerized solutions, and we find spaces and we put those up so that we can provide services to homeless people. But also we're looking at a very holistic approach towards homelessness in these shelters. And the responsible giving program or project looks at doing away with the idea of giving people money to introducing a voucher system that is backed up by a very smart program where they can reclaim these vouchers in places where they can either get food or something that will help them, instead of using money. In some cases, we know this, to go and either buy drugs or buy alcohol, or the money that ends up in some syndicates who basically use that to literally drive in a very, very dark and worrying ecosystem. In fact, yesterday we did a walkabout in the city to look at these spaces where we're going to put the shelters, and you can see there visibly some of these homeless people who are sitting there injecting themselves with drugs visibly in front of ourselves. So we want to introduce that responsible giving dimension as a part to try and deal with them. Just take the money, the actual money out of the hands, but introduce a system that makes a big difference. The point in time counter that I spoke to earlier, we did this last week, and it was an incredibly mind-blowing experience. I mean, it's the first time that we're doing this in the CBD of Johannesburg. I know that the city of Cape Town has done this once or twice. I know that the city of Tshwane did this twice, to the best of my recollection. In the city of Joburg, we did this, and we had an amazing group of partners working with us, from NGOs such as MES, the city of Johannesburg officials. Some of them came through, and many other partners that work with Jozi My Jozi. I think we had volunteers of, give or take, 140 odd people that came through, and we did this work from 7:30 at night all the way to past midnight. Targeting very specific areas where we're engaging with displaced people and asking them questions to basically make sure that we understand what is going on. So the plan on this initiative is to do it twice a year, both in winter and in summer, because the dynamics are very, very different. And why I'm sharing this with you is to drive the point home that as Jozi My Jozi, or the work that we do, a lot of 99% of the time, we don't talk a lot about intent. We speak about what we have done or what has been completed. There'll probably be very few instances where I speak about what will still happen or what we are planning to do. And you'll see as we come through. So this was completed last week. We are now in a phase of doing some data analysis and making sure that we understand what story is coming through, what are the results, what are the findings. Obviously, we'll share that with different stakeholders, in particular government, be it province or the city, or anybody else for that matter who's interested in understanding what the issues are. Hopefully that can inform policy and strategy, but most importantly, how we respond issues of homelessness. I was party to this, and what was very amazing for me when we spoke to some of these homeless people is that a lot of them want to leave the streets. I mean, we make all sorts of assumptions until you speak to some of the homeless people who say to you, actually, I want to leave here. I want to be helped to get a job or to have an ID or something like that so that I can actually do something for myself. So it was very impactful for some of us. And as far as the educational extreme is concerned, we once again target the areas where the vulnerable areas in these spaces. I'm sure in a lot of these CBDs, you do find, which is the case in the CBD of Johannesburg, early childhood development centers that are operational, but are operating illegally. And as a result, they do not gain any access to support from government. We start working with these ECDs where we help them to get some form of registration so that they can also be given a particular state, either silver or bronze, so they can start gaining access to some services from government. For obvious reasons, some of these ECDs are very reluctant to engage with Jozi My Jozi for a simple reason that either they are run by people who come outside the country and don't have the necessary documents, which means we have to start engaging with the Department of Home Affairs and so on. We're also liaising with some schools to understand what the needs are, and these are schools within the CBD of Johannesburg, so that can design custom-made programs to support them in some of their needs. I'm very, very happy to announce that we have a funder that's assisted us to establish, quite frankly, this could well be the very first, robotics and AI school, and that does coding, robotics, and AI for kids, just across the block from our offices, which is at our Maharishi. It's a post-education center, and this school is going to be assisting kids on coding robotics for kids. It's all we needed for some time. It's just a venue, a space where we can set this up. At the center is going to be set up because we have a partner who agreed to fund this. Basically, we're just going to get it up and running in a very short space of time. There is a very, very another heartwarming and touching story on the ECD in Soweto that we work very closely with. It's an ECD that's driven by an incredibly passionate elderly lady in Orlando West, who has put together, who's mobilized kids who need just a space to learn after school, and to basically just be together and be safe. She's put this facility together. She's getting over 100 kids who come through after school to sit in her facility to just learn and get something to eat and get the support that they need. We're helping her to make sure that this center that she has set up, it's being formalized. The difficulty and the challenge that we're having, which is often the case, is that we have to deal with government processes that do not accommodate these kinds of innovative solutions. For us, this is one of the biggest challenges that we find. Even the safer spaces that I was talking about earlier, you find that you come up with an incredibly innovative solution, but the way government is structured, the laws, the regulations, they make it incredibly difficult to actually move with speed to deliver these innovative solutions that would be able to respond to some of the challenges. There's a case in point in this particular ICE. I've spoken about the public transit revitalization. Essentially, the core of this area of work rests in changing the business model of our taxi industry so that it can move away from the type of a taxi driver that chases customers so that they can make as much money as possible, to a model that allows them to drive professionally, knowing that they're going to get a source of income that's guaranteed, where there is no exchange, once again, of money, but there's a system built into each and every single taxi, where people can actually either pay through electronically into the taxi system, and the driver can be secure, can be assured of income. We want to pilot this in the October month, which is transport month. If we get some kind of money, it's a very, very difficult space to gain traction in because of the nature of the industry and the reluctance of the partners to basically come through. But we're not giving up, which is one thing that I enjoy and about being in the space of Jozi My Jozi, is the resilience that exists with doing what we do. We really keep pushing until the doors are open. I'm really, really happy to tell you about the CCTV camera rollout. This is work that, in fact, my excitement will come through in the next slide, not particularly this one just yet. We had started to install CCTV cameras within the CBD of Johannesburg. For obvious reasons, there is anecdotal evidence that says one of the most important game changers in cities is when you're able to deal with the safety. The moment people feel safe in any city or CBD, that tends to unlock a lot of other investments and so on and so on and so on. The CCTV camera rollout is one of the initiatives that we're working on. And the story of the CCTV cameras had to take a pause simply because the city of Johannesburg had introduced bylaws that led to that literally made us to put a halt on mobilizing partners so that we can roll this out much quicker. The good news, having said that, is that these bylaws have been repealed, which means we can start mobilizing for support and funding. The provincial government wouldn't agree to help us in this. The gateway story is, I think, one of the incredibly practical but impactful story that everywhere where we talk about the work of Jozi My Jozi, everybody kind of recognizes it. And I'll show you some examples now. And I'll come back to the gateway story and the Israelites. We're part and parcel of the cleanup campaigns that the city of that happens in the city of Johannesburg. This is an initiative that is driven by government, but we assist. Where you see the picture of a basketball and a soccer field, that's the Maharishi school that was started by a partner of ours, Dr. Tilibaka, who literally decided that he is going to bring on board children who cannot gain access to tertiary education because it's too expensive. I think the kids pay, give or take, about $300, and they learn a holistic way. They learn in a holistic way. And what that means is that they learn the entire value chain of mindfulness and so on. But at the same time, they learn things such as security, cooking, and so on. So this school is established in an incredibly fast pace. It's at the corner of Anderson and Denipili. So it's part of the M2 Precinct initiative that Lethu was presenting on earlier. What then happens with these kids, once they have learned these courses that is premised on this holistic approach, then they get absorbed by the private sector. I think every year there's about 300 kids who finish. It is incredible to see how the private sector absorbs these young kids who literally end up having jobs. So it's not one of those situations where after training, after getting this fantastic support and education, they sit at home. They get absorbed by the private sector. In fact, we had 50% of the volunteers we had at the point in time count last week came from this particular school. And they said to us when they were being asked whether or not they'll be doing this again, they said yes, they're prepared to do that again, which tells a very powerful story of how volunteerism and passion and just being willing to help can actually change our cities. I've spoken about gateways. There's about 13 of those. This is where they're located in. The story of the gateways within the city of Johannesburg is as follows. It comes from an idea that says one of the things that changes how people experience the city is through the main arterials into the CBD. In other words, when you drive or walk into the CBD of any CBD quadrant in the world, you want to get some kind of a sense of pride of what the city is about, feel safe, number two, but also get a sense of the fact that things are working in this particular city. And those are the 2 or 3 things that we try to achieve with the gateways. We've done some work in Nelson Bridge. It's not necessarily the entry point into the city of Johannesburg, but it is an iconic space within the city of Johannesburg. We transformed the space, this gateway, within a very short space of time. I hadn't joined Jozi My Jozi by then, but this is the artwork and the design that we put in the bridge. For those of you who live or who intend to come to the city of Johannesburg, just take time and just drive past the bridge. You will see how incredible it looks. There's lights that lit up at night. We put in CCTV cameras. We put in solar lights on the bridge itself, just to complete the picture and the story of Nelson Mandela Bridge. We are currently doing the same on Cornelius Bridge. In fact, a colleague of mine was showing me some of the figure cuts. If you look at the picture on your bottom left, those figure cuts, they have been completed. We're installing them. This project started less than just over a month ago. We activated this. We are in a position where we basically just installing the figure cuts, and the grass has been cut, the park has been fixed up, and there's lots of movement. I mean, give or take, this project will be done in the next month or so. We want to do the same in all the other gateways. The other piece of positive news that's incredibly exciting for us is all these 13 gateways have a sponsor. That is from the private sector, be it Standard Bank, FNB, Absa, KPMG, and so on. They've decided we'll take on this particular gateway, set some resources aside so that we can sponsor the gateway. What that tells you is the fact that there is a willingness from the private sector to come in. What makes it even a lot more exciting for us, as Jozi My Jozi said, these partners are not bothered about putting their names on these gateways. You will not see Absa's name on this gateway, and yet you're sponsored by Absa. If you look at the the Cornelius Bridge, you will not see FNB's name there. And the only thing that you'll pick up if you know the corporate branding of the sponsor is their corporate colors. And you can see the green coming through there, and the blue and the black. That tells you that there's anything, but there's no naming convention, anything like that. Even Jozi My Jozi does not put any branding on any of these sites. And what's more important for us is to bring back that sense of pride, that sense of excitement, the sense of placemaking that's unique. We work a lot with what exists on this particular, on any of the gateways. As you can see on your top right picture where there's mosaic artworks. Those mosaic artworks have been there for a long time, but if you look at them now, they're old, they've not been maintained, they've not been looked after. In a short space of time, we're going to literally upgrade that artwork. I mean, you can see it's the South African flag. We're going to just upgrade it beautifully so it pops up quite nicely. It looks fresh, clean, and it becomes an artwork that you can be proud to walk along it. Another story about our gateways that we play with is to theme each and every one of the gateways using a paragraph or a section of the preamble of the Constitution, just to bring it back home, just give it that South African flavor and feel towards the end. In terms of partnership contributions, I mean, here's a list that you have here. What are we learning? Very, very quickly. Firstly, is that working with the private sector actually does help to get things done in a sense that you move much quicker towards delivery. I've spoken a lot about the importance of volunteerism, which comes together with passion. Every other day, and I can't repeat this enough, we are inundated with people who want to work with Jozi My Jozi to actually make an impact in the city of Johannesburg. And I shouldn't say unfortunately, Lethu will be upset with me. We have to work with the public sector. It's quite critical. It means you have to be patient. It means you have to be persistent. It means you have to be relentless. It means in some cases you have to be a bit pushy. I suppose the advantage that I have is that I've been in this space for quite a while. But that relationship is important to sustain and look after. Because if you don't, really, it's not possible to get traction. Focusing on getting the basics right. You would have seen in a lot of my presentations, I've shared with you those small but powerful and impactful interventions that makes practical difference, but that will bring a whole lot of spin-off. For instance, on the Mandela Bridge Gateway, or what we're finding is that the red bus, I think it's there in Cape Town, all the tourists stop there, they take pictures of the bridge, they put that on social media, and that gives you that international footprint, because tourists basically use the bridge as a way to show a sense of pride and a symbol of the city of Johannesburg. So typically that's a modality. Intentionality, and as far as delivery is concerned, it's a comparative advantage. In fact, a lot of our Jozi My Jozi brand is on the fact that we really get things done. I'm not saying this because I work at Jozi My Jozi. It's essentially a lot of the feedback and the discussions that we get when we engage with public sector and any other player. But it's intentional on our part to make sure that we actually get delivery done. Reputation matters. We make sure also that what we do is of quality, is above board, and there is no suspicion or hint of any kind of corruption. Lethu spoke quite a bit about the work at the M2 precinct, so I'm not going to mention that at the moment. There is another project that we're working with National Treasury on homelessness. There's a piece of work that they've done in the city of Queen that they want to bring to Johannesburg. We're hoping that National Treasury will agree to take that forward with Jozi My Jozi, but they have that work on that. And then the Jozi My Jozi movement is growing. It's growing in a sense that we've been approached by Black municipalities to say, we're hearing all these things about what you guys are doing in the city of Johannesburg. How can we in Kimberley replicate this? We've had the first engagement with them. Similarly, I think over a week ago, we had the Mayor of Cape Town coming through to our offices to say, I'm hearing all these things that you guys are doing and in Jozi My Jozi. Let's have a chat. Let's have a conversation to see what we can do together. And in Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality in Bloemfontein, there's that interest. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to end off with a video that I'm going to hope plays now as my parting shots. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Jozi My Jozi. This is the heart of Mzansi, a city that gets its heartbeat from its people. Phela, we're a city with great history, diversity and opportunity. Jozi My Jozi. Yabona la, siya pusha, siya creator, siya dominator, la lela, siya operator. When they say resta, 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 we don't stop. We keep it moving. We are pioneers, lovers, and plugs. We are always chasing dreams right to the finish line. Jozi My Jozi, the city of gold. But the gold of our city is we. We, the people. Our resilience, our culture, our creativity. We are the backbone and hope for our city. And together, we'll make Jozi the gold standard of cities around the world. A city that is safe for all. A city that is not built by skyscrapers, but by its people. A city where the unseen becomes seen and where the voiceless are heard. Some may look at our city and think, we have no way forward. But guess what? We will make one. Because that is who we are. That is what we do. It's time for us, the people of Jozi, to make this city of gold shine brighter than it ever has. It's time for all of us to help fix and create a city we can all proudly call Jozi My Jozi.
Awesome. Thank you, Diale. Thanks, Lethu, for showing what collaboration can do and how this generates new idea, and Diale for showing us some really practical examples of implementation. I'm sure there's questions from the audience. We're going to open the floor up for questions. Oh, I see one comment in the chat. I'm uplifted. Great. Yes, there's one question. Yosina?
Thank you so much for this inspirational presentation. My name is Josina Overvest. I'm an inner city resident. So I experience what you talk about on a daily basis because I also walk in the city. Well done to Jozi My Jozi on working on the Nelson Mandela Bridge, which I can actually see from my apartment here, so that the lights came back on. Was like a wow moment. So thank you very much for that. My question is, I'm an inner city resident. I work also with inner city organizations like the Joburg Literary District. How do you engage with organizations and people that live in the inner city and work in the inner city, have a business in the inner city? Can I mention an example where the shop owners in Diagonal Street complain about all the different organizations who want to put security into place, which leads to more security people in the street than there are actual shoppers. And those shoppers feel intimidated by this influx of security people. And not everything that's going on with these security groups is really relevant to or keeping the people safe. People are being asked to show what's in their bags, to hand over phones. So what seems like a good thing to do actually has an adverse effect. So how do you tackle that? Because these particular shop owners have been to the police, have tried to report it. They do have videos, but not much follow-up is happening. And it's almost a bit the same with let's clean the inner city. There are so many different cleaning initiatives. There's also almost turf wars going on between the different cleaning initiatives. So that's a bit difficult. And an organization like the Joburg Literary District is hugely involved in library gardens and what's happening at the city library. So, and also the area in front of it, what's happening there with engagement on what it is you want to do there. So it's really talking to how do you engage, how do you feel actually being in the streets, what your interventions, what the impact is, and do they really do work the way you intended, or are there some unintended side effects? Thank you.
Diale, do you want to tackle that one?
So, Maurice, let me just thank you very much for the kind words for my question that's been raised. There's two ways that we try to engage with ordinary people within the city. The one modality of engagement is we encourage anybody within the city of Johannesburg who wants to work with Jozi My Jozi and reach out to us through our platform, which is through the internet or website. And there you get an opportunity to say you want to come in as a volunteer, you want to come in as a contributor in whichever way that you wish to assist. And then we get a database of people that we can work with, we can engage with. That's one side of it. The second side of engaging with ordinary citizens is through a modality or a model that we're going to introduce, working with province, where we actually sit in with different communities in different precincts. And we have what we call, I think it's a methodology that some of you may be familiar with. It's called asset-based community development approach, where we sit down, we actually curate engagement sessions with ordinary people within the city who represents different organizations, where we'll be saying to you, what are the key issues, what are the challenges, what's working, what's not working. The most important with this modality is that it's focused on, it's an asset-based approach. This is a modality that we're going to strengthen through government. It has not been activated yet, which is why you have not seen or heard much about it, but it's definitely one of the avenues that we want to explore as Jozi My Jozi. At the same time, we are incredibly cautious of not replacing the role of the city in terms of dealing with issues such as law enforcement, in terms of dealing with some of the challenges that ought to be addressed by the city. We are really careful to say we want to play that very fine, we don't want to cross that fine line where the city has got certain responsibilities, because we want to partner with them. So it's an area that we can strengthen moving forward, but we want to do so with a certain amount of cautiousness. As one would imagine, I think the city might just start getting upset with us to say this is what we're meant to do. For obvious reasons, the asset-based community development approach, when we start deploying it, we would need to work with the ward councillor and the NMC within the particular precinct, because we want to make sure that ultimately the city also is aware of these and so on. Last point, we are very much aware and alive to some of the unintended consequences of the work that we're doing. There's an entire story of the tagging of the Mandela Bridge, where, when we were finished with it, the day after we found spray painting and things like that on Mandela Bridge, which is something that's said to us, to the point that's been made here, to say we need to strengthen how we engage with local and citizens on the ground. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please put up your hand if you have a question for either Diale or Lethu. Otherwise, I have a question, of course. Lethu, from what you were presenting on the collaboration and the workshops, is that a project that is driven by the city and brought in the World Bank as a partner, or was it the World Bank requesting the city to do this? What is driving this project?
Yeah, luckily it is the city that reached out to us through the city support program. As I mentioned, the World Bank has been implementing partner under the City Support Program, which is a program under the National Treasury. And we created a facility where cities could reach out to us on any topic that they were grappling with. And City of Joburg asked for our assistance with the regeneration approach in the inner city. Yeah, and I think it's been a really fruitful exercise for the city, because the amount of resources we've been able to leverage. We came in with a small pot of resources where we thought we'd only get in a local technical assistance or firm to help with the urban planning side of things, but then very soon afterwards we got support from the City Resilience Program, who are funding the market study. We got support from the Global Smart City Partnership Unit, which supported the data curation exercise. I didn't talk too much about that. And then there's other interests. So we're moving into a next phase of implementation in January next year, where we're still going to be working with the city. So yeah, I think all of that is really going to ultimately tell a very interesting story.
Nice, thank you. I still see no hands, so I'll go down my list of questions that I put together while I was listening to your presentations. What would be your ideal vision for the city? Like if this project that you're working on now, and like if we're 5 years ahead from now, what would you like to see changed in the M2 precinct?
Oh, it's definitely the city sticking to the commitments that would form part of the roadmap. All these low-hanging fruit interventions, all these engagement with stakeholders, that for me is the story of success. And Diale made the point that working with the public sector is really difficult. And your first question after I finished presenting was that Jesus was a nice opportunity to engage with people. In that process, we realized that the city is so stretched that they don't have platforms where people are able to engage, ideate, and feel like they're part of a solution. So it's the city really sticking to its guns on the implementation plan that we're going to develop, but also continuing the stakeholder engagement. Luckily, we'll be around for the next 3 years. So at the very least, we're going to make sure that the engagement part of things does happen, and hopefully that tells a story on its own and how the city can open itself up to engaging with key players in whatever space it's involved in.
Yeah. And Diale, what would that look for you, like in 5 years' time? Where would you see Jozi My Jozi, hopefully not moving to Cape Town, but like staying in Jozi? What would it look for you like in the coming next 5 years?
Sure. I hope you can say, it looks like my IT is not that good, but and apologies for that. So there's two scenarios here. The one is where Jozi My Jozi is not doing as much work as we're doing, and the city is literally driving a lot of these initiatives. And for me, that we're big with, because what that does is that it sustains what we've started. And for me, that's one scenario that would be absolutely brilliant. The other scenario is, firstly, I would love to see the entire city of Johannesburg lit with solar streetlight that is safe, where people can walk safely, where we can have a 24-hour city as a result of some of the interventions that we've made, where all the entrances of the city are unique. They reflect an African city as you enter, and it's safe, and it's got incredibly inspiring art and features. And I would like to see Jozi My Jozi having worked with the city, where you have an incredible amount of artists within the CBD, living in the CBD, pocket plazas within the CBD that would have facilitated murals all over the iconic buildings within the city. Essentially, Jozi My Jozi contributing to a vibrant 24-hour city where everybody is proud to live, work, and play in. That's what we'd love to see Jozi My Jozi contributing to whatever that we can. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Lethu, you mentioned in the beginning of your presentation the Maboneng precinct deteriorating. That was obviously, like, before COVID happened, quite an exciting space. Do you think spaces like that will regenerate itself again over the coming years, or other places within the city like popping up like that?
Yeah, look, it would be a real shame if it didn't regenerate itself, or the city didn't intervene, because if you think about the public environment upgrade or investments that were made by the private sector in that space, phenomenal. But it's all going to waste because it's not being maintained, or the city does renovations for water and the trenches aren't filled up properly, right? So a lot of it is just a basic logic that needs to be in place, that if you're going to issue away leave, there must be somebody that monitors that it gets closed at the end of the day. Yeah, so I really hope that those spaces do not waste away. It's right adjacent to Jewel City, and again, it speaks to this point that I made in the beginning, that you can't have these dotted investments where there isn't a clear plan on how you're going to safeguard the investment, the infrastructure, and make sure that it's available over the next 5-10 years. Yeah, so it really is about like how to build the partnerships with the likes of Jozi My Jozi, other players in the space, to make sure that there is constant activity in these spaces. When the lights go off, there's a plan to bring them back in.
Yeah, great, thank you. We're running out of time here, so I'm gonna wrap up the webinar. Thank you all for attending. Next month's webinar is about urban roots, forest and farming, and we're hoping to get 2 speakers around urban forest and urban farming. So slightly different, not quite built environment, but still very relevant. And yeah, a big thank you for to Lethu and Diale for spending your time with us. I'm very excited to see that the 2 of you, the strides and the implementation plans that you are doing to our city is really amazing work, and I hope you guys are going to be very successful, because that means that our city is going to do really well. So thank you guys, thank you for all your efforts in the work that you're doing, and the time that you're spending here with us to present and share with the community what is happening in the city. And then lastly, we're running the Design for Greater Efficiency course in Gauteng from the 9th to the 11th, and in Cape Town from the 14th to the 16th. So if you're interested, again, reach out to us. And then just a quick reminder to if you haven't done so, please like us on LinkedIn or follow us on one of our platforms. It really helps us, your support on that. And with that, I'm very excited after these 2 presentations. I'm really excited to see what's happening in our city. Thank you all for attending, and thank you to the speakers, and have a great evening, and hope to see you next month again.